Then we see the foil. Looking a bit confusing, and a brainstorm in no, wait, it must be end of turn. That would, yeah, sure.
Lands don't use the stack.
Not at all. Carl opting for the conspiracy art brainstorm.
Tisk need a flavor judge to come in, give him a warning.
Especially in Legacy. And the brainstorm, Tim allows that to resolve, declining to Spell Pierce. Instead, again, as in last game, preferring to save that for one of the bigger action spells. Especially, like, Spell Pierce becomes very easy to use when your opponent's activating their man lands and attacking with them every turn. It becomes very hard to pay 2.
And the players are going down to 19 apiece.
It is neck and neck.
You
Both
have
at
3
0
lands,
infect.
I have 3 lands.
How do you feel about Carl's Tropical Islands not matching?
Oh, because one is beta, or that could be FBB, it's alright. Actually, if it's beta, it's alright. If it's FBB, go get another FBB.
Oh, we see an Invigorate coming down from Carl, so you would imagine this is going to get Spell Pierce from Tim. Although it does look... Oh,
no, he's just going to
letting it resolve.
Possibly take 5.
Tim, not afraid of 5 Infect at all. So Carl's debating whether or not to further load up this Inkmoth Nexus, potentially.
Is there a
Oh no, damage has gone through.
second pump spell?
A split-second pump spell? I don't believe there is. I'm not sure how many cycles of split-second cards there are. There's, like, Crozen Grip is...
Oh no, damage hasn't gone through. He's going for the second.
The second Invigorates, that's 9 Infect, I believe.
Yeah, putting his opponent up to 27 life.
So yeah, definitely, and Tim
Electing to
choosing now to crack the fetch land and try and stop the Invigorate. But you'd imagine if Carl's going for it here, he probably has either a Force or a Daze or his own Spell Pierce to try and force it through.
Tim Hughes here on 26 life now. Or no? He's gained 8 life from the 2 Invigorates. Is that right?
Certainly, I'm not exactly sure. To be honest, I don't think Tim needs to track his life total. I think the cards in his deck are just as relevant as far as losing the game is concerned. So we see...
And that's definitely that Spell Pierce.
Spell Pierce, and it looks like...
Resolving.
Carl allows that, and maybe he's going for a Berserk, and the Berserk comes down.
And the hand is extended.
Well played, Carl, yeah. Carl having a serious case of having it all there. And Tim Hughes not quite being able to find both the interaction and the lands that he needed.
That's alright. We only had 1 match for you this round, so we will be back in 20 minutes or so with the advent of round 5. We'll be looking at a couple of the bubble players. We've seen at least 4 of the players who are still going strong up in the top bracket, so we'll leave them to fight it out, see how they do. And then those who are on the bubble, I believe we'll be watching them.
Yeah, exciting matches, everything on the line. Always good to watch. So we'll see you back here for round 7.
Obviously trying to keep him off black, because I think the
He might be afraid of like mainboard Cabal therapies or
main
Abrupt
board
Decays.
discard. Yeah, but then again, it's still he's getting rid of that black mana.
Hmm.
Keeping the Dryad Arbor in play does keep him off from playing Cradle this turn for tapping it for 2.
I guess if it's also a Rug Devil deck, he can just bolt the Dryad Arbor as another sort of removal
That's true.
spell. So another Verdant Catacombs by Martin. Presumably going to get a basic... Oh, no, going for the Bayou again.
Does he have any black spells in his main, or is he just... Does he have the... He does have the 3 forests, so he is just walking into strip effects here. Or waste effects, we are playing Legacy after all.
He could also be trying to bait his opponent into maybe doing a turn 2 Wasteland, because the Elves deck does build its
It does
available
build its
mana
mana
quicker.
very, very rapidly, and the double waste would set him back with 2 creatures in play now.
And also puts him off potential plays like Days.
Mm. I don't like having an empty board against elves.
It's quite a scary. I don't like them having untapped lands, even if it's just one. Goes downhill quickly. The number of games I've played where I've thought I've got that Elves player, and then all of a sudden it's a Craterhoof Behemoth hitting me for more life points than I can block for.
There you go. You just needs to be Drain Life can only hit you for exactly the life points you have.
So we've got a Ponder here. What are the 3 cards? I can't quite see them, but he's electing to keep them all and draw one.
That is the land for turn, so he doesn't have a bolt or anything here. Oh, he is potentially holding up a Daze. So what are you thinking? Lands in front for our Elves player? I love it.
You would.
So the Wirewood Symbiote there allows him to untap, gain more mana than he otherwise normally would.
It also allows him to protect the Heritage Druid. It means that Jansek can't bolt the Heritage Druid without him at least trying to save it for the turn after.
Yeah. It looks like he does have Tom does have Force in hand, so... And with no discard spells main, it means something that Leroy's going to do is going to get hit. Unfortunately, you can't Force of Will a legendary land. Or any land.
So it looks like we're Green Sun's something here for 2, presumably to get the Elvish Visionary and start the card drawing engine.
For those players out here who may be watching who don't quite understand the combo that he's trying to evoke, can you explain that for them?
So Elvish Visionary is a 1 and a green for a 1/1 elf. When it comes into play, you can draw a card. And so Elves is trying to draw lots and lots of cards to get more elves into play. And so the Wirewood Symbiote actually lets you return an elf, and it's part of the cost as well, so it can't be counted. And so you just keep playing the elf over and over again, drawing into bigger and better spells.
And every time you cast it, you get to untap your Heritage Druid.
You do. You get to untap. Heritage Druid isn't the one that untaps. That's Nettle Sentinel.
Ah, yes.
But you can use the Wirewood Symbiote to untap a creature.
And also Leroy just going, I haven't got anything else to do, bash for 3.
It is interesting that Jansik has elected to pitch the Daze here, but I guess he figures that Leroy's so far ahead on mana that making him pay that 1 extra isn't really going to do a whole lot.
That's our second Wasteland. Do we think Leroy's going to try and just go for the bash?
It's always a good second strategy. You know, the more points you can chip off now, you know, the smaller your Craterhoof can be later.
Yep.
So it looks like he's sending in the team. Another Dryad Arbor.
So we do have a pretty stock standard Rogue Delver list here. Again, however, he is foregoing the use of Gitaxian Probe here. It really feels like that card has gone out of favour a lot in terms of, obviously, it's the best way to get an early Goyf, to make it bigger than usual, to get it out, to get that sorcery into the yard when you want to brainstorm or something on turn 1 rather than cast a Ponder or a Preordain, which sometimes just isn't as good. And for his flex slots, he is running looks like a Pyroblast, a Forked Bolt, and going up to the full 4 Spell Pierce.
So I normally consider Spell Pierce a mainstay in Rug Delver. I always thought the Stifle was one of the flex slots.
Well, the Stifle, people have gone back and forth. There's been quite a few articles on whether or not the Stifle is necessary. Some proponents of Stifle say it is a must-have, you must have it. And a lot of others say, you know what, it's not as effective as it was.
See, I think Stifle's amazing at the moment. Recently we swapped the four Chain Lightnings out for 4 Stifles, and just the potential to win games is amazing. People keep shaky hands with awkward land bases, and just hitting those fetch lands is just absolutely backbreaking. It is interesting that he has run the 1 Pyroblast in the main. With no Snapcasters, it's sort of...
All that means to me is he expected to play against a lot of Miracles, a lot of Omnitel. Just there's a very blue dense field here, and running, it is just a Miser's Pyroblast, but not bad.
I do like the Fork Bolt. My list used to run 2, and there's a bit of L's back home in Brisbane, and it's always nice to 2-for-1 them.
We saw Forked Bolt in the last round for the game.
Nice. Both at the Dome?
Yes, both at the Dome.
So this game plan of turning dudes sideways seems to be going quite well, whether you're tapping them to cast big green suns or take life points.
We do have that.
It's a green suns for 3, so I'm assuming it's an Azuri here. Oh, no. It is just going to be the Elvish Visionary.
Yes, so I believe he attacked with the 2 Heritage Druids and then tapped the 2 Arbors and the Bayou for the Green Suns.
Okay, I missed that.
So that's going to come into play. He's going to draw a card. He now has 3 Elves in play, so he can start tapping his Druids for mana. And start to go off from there, hopefully. His opponent does have Daze and the ability to cast it, but even so, from the current board state, Leroy doesn't have to cast any more spells. He can just attack and win through a Delver.
It is nice that because he doesn't have 3 elves, he can still use the Wirewood Symbiote's ability to untap the Dryad Arbor. While not an elf, it's a land, so you can just keep tapping it down for mana.
And there was a Daze on the Deathrite Shaman. Tom digging for a lot of action here, using the classic, with the fetch land up, cast Brainstorm in my main phase.
Sometimes you have to do it, especially when you're that far behind. And he really wants to be digging for his burn spells.
I don't think a burn spell's enough here.
If you can get multiple though, you can. You get them to use the symbiote's ability, but it is pretty dire straits here because of the double heritage druid. But I think I'd be wanting to try that kill that symbiote as quickly as possible because that card drawing engine is just going to put him further and further out of reach.
And we just got confirmation from the floor that Green Sun Zenith was an X equals 2. Tom very wisely electing not to swing with the Delver.
So Leroy looks like he's got a. We know he has the Visionary in hand. I thought I saw a Gaea's Cradle. Yes.
That's the only sound I can make.
So he's tapped it for 5. 2 is going on the Visionary.
Elect not to.
I assume
use a Dryad Arbor and a
It looks like
And
he's
the
going to use
Bane.
the Dryad here and then untap it with the Wirewood Symbiote. So he can cast it again.
Indicating that his card has been used by putting it upside down.
I remember back when I played Elves in Extended, around about the time that LSV won that Pro Tour.
Berlin.
Berlin. There was you would play lots and lots of Elves on the table, and then you'd hit a point where you couldn't remember which ones were summoning sick and which ones were not. And so I got a playmat and I drew a big divide down the middle so I could separate the two piles.
Activating the second one.
Did a second symbiote.
Mm-hmm.
So he also looks like he has another Green Suns in hand. So if he can get enough mana, we could just see a big Crater Hoof.
What do you think Tom's been holding this whole time? He spent his turn. What has he got in hand? He spent his turns pondering, brainstorming. He did Daze.
Is he running Spell Pierce? It could be a Spell
He's running
Pierce.
the full 4 Spell Pierce.
Because it can't hit any of these creatures. But I have a feeling that Leroy also has the Crater Hoof in hand. But he's running 2 in his list. Is that a Quirion Ranger? So revealing a Stifle off the top to flip the Delver. I assume it won't be attacking though, now it has flying.
Bear in mind, Tom's only on 7 here. He does have lethal on board.
Is that including a blocker?
Yeah, he's got
1, 2,
8
3,
creatures.
4, 5, 6.
So he needs to have a burn spell and block with the...
He can't even use the burn spell because of fetch lands. So it'd need to be something like a Fork Bolt to kill 2 creatures for the price of 1 life.
No, because Fork Bolt costs 2 and he'd need to crack 2
Fork Bolt
lands.
costs 1.
Oh, done.
1 red.
1 red. Card seems so much better now.
Crater Hoof followed by a concession.
So looking at the sideboards here, we've got a few cards that are obviously not very effective in both decks against the others. The Pyroblast.
So I assume the Pyroblast is going to come out.
Such a gimme.
I think the Stifle may come out as well, unless he still wants to hit the fetch lands.
Yep. The Rug Delver deck does have 2 Rough and Tumble, which are going to be absolutely excellent against the Elves' opponent.
The Submerge should probably come in as well.
Yes, Submerge will help put things back on top of his library, especially in response to something like a
fetch land or a Green Suns.
Green Sun Zenith. Make them go get the card that you just submerged.
I think the Spell Snare is probably not as likely to come in. What are the 2 drops in Leroy's deck? We've got the Green Sun Zenith for 1, the Elvish Visionary, the one-off Scavenging Urge.
The Birchlaw Rangers.
The Birchlaw Range is one mana as well. It's the green Morph Elf. Which one have you confused it with?
No, I know exactly which one it is. I just, for some reason, thought it was 2. So yeah,
I think the Grafdigger's Cage may...
Oh, Grafdigger's Cage 100% is coming in. And we do have Dredge doing its thing against Graham King on Rug Delver. Graham managed to actually win Game 1 against the Dredge Ball. That's very, very interesting. I'd like to see how he did that.
I presume the Dredge player did not dredge as many cards as he desired.
And that is at least 1 bridge from below down there. So the Secret is going to give him a token.
I didn't recognize the bridge from below. It's got the new
the
modern
new-
borders. So do we have the dredge list handy?
We will be pulling up the Dredge list momentarily for you.
It looks like he has a Faithless Looting in the graveyard there. But what's the card between Dark Blast and Golgari Grave Troll?
A blue
Oh,
one.
it'll be Breakthrough.
Oh, the new
It'll be the
conspiracy
new
art
art
for
Breakthrough.
Graham King electing to Lightning Bolt his own Delver in order to get rid of those 2 Bridge from Belows. And there's
Oh.
another 2.
That's a monster flip. Especially if there's a Cabal Therapy in there to sort of...
Is there a Cabal Therapy? I don't believe that there is a Cabal Therapy in that bin.
I think there's one between the Icarid and the
Oh, that is.
Cabal Therapy.
2 more tokens.
Like, it's going to be a tough battle to beat 8 powers with the zombies over the next 2 turns.
And tumble.
Does Graham King have Rough and Tumble?
I do believe that he does.
That's a card that I think has been seeing a lot more
He
play
may
lately.
have just drawn it.
But does he have the land?
Put 2 cards back, play land, rough. If he doesn't have the land, he may elect to put it on top.
I think it's only going to, stem the tide a little bit because he has got Icarid in his graveyard.
He does have Icarid in the
I don't think there is a black creature, but as soon as one gets there, Icarid's going to be swinging in for 3 and making 2 tokens. And so unless he can keep drawing Rough and Tumbles to keep up with.
I don't think Graham's got that extra land. He's doing the math. Next, so he takes 4, goes down to 8. He roughs. Tokens go away, and then hopefully no more. I don't believe Chris has any dredges in his yard left.
No, I think he has used them all up.
So next turn, if he manages to rough, tokens go away. He's on 8, and then he's got a couple of turns for... Well, he's got a lot of turns if it's Chris getting all the way back up to 8 cards to discard naturally.
However, as soon as he draws the land, he can activate the Cephalid Colosseum and start discarding those dredges again.
Yes, very much.
Oh, Dark Blast. I think is the last of the dredges.
Legacy Dredge, a very, very different beast to the Vintage Dredge you and I are much more used to.
I remember my first Vintage tournament, I actually played my Legacy Dredge list and someone told me that Lion's Eye Dine was restricted and I was kind of shattered.
Oh no. Bolt one of the tokens, go to 6.
I think Dredge got a lot better once Faithless Looting was reprinted. Having something to do with those Lion's Eye Diamonds.
Well, yeah, not only just getting the card in the graveyard to begin with, but also being able to draw all in one card.
It's quite absurd. The players that I've seen with it since Faithless Looting was
That
printed.
Narcomoeba is also absolutely just deadly. The Ruffle mate turn it into 2 tokens.
Yeah, that's quite a beating.
Okay, so that's 1-1 on the Dredge. Back to our other game, we've got the Nimble Mongoose army assembled. We've got a couple of Shroud 1-1s against the Elves player, tapping to make more mana. Nettle Sentinel coming down.
But looks like Leray is already starting his engine. I've always thought of Birch Laws as the not quite as good Heritage Druid. It'll let you drop a lot of 1-1s incrementally out there, but you can never seem to gain more mana off them like you can with Heritage Druid.
Yeah, the Birchlaw Rangers always kind of flitted around. Sometimes 0, sometimes only 1. It looks like now we've gone up to 2 in this list. They are a bit more for the more combo-tastic lists that actually just want to go off and get that engine off as fast as possible. They're the next best option.
Yeah, it's the Heritage Druid number 5 and 6. Plus, in a pinch, you can use them to create black, red, or whatever kind of
Yeah, you can
sneaky
actually
mana that you need out of the sideboard.
you can actually use them to cast your Duress, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, Cabal Therapy, whichever one you want.
I used to run Fireball, or Bane Fire, the uncountable one.
And you were a bad person.
I was a bad person.
Those Nimble Mongoose not showing much.
Oh,
of a
Grafdigger's
flop at all.
Cage.
So Grafdigger's Cage definitely did come in. That's a very, very good card. It means he can't Green Sun Zenith, he can't Natural Order. It doesn't stop the actual just gaining cards and mana combo that he's almost got assembled here. That is a Gaia's Cradle in his hand.
He also has the Elvish Visionary, but I don't know if he has the Wirewood Symbiote, and that would really get the card engine
Well, hopefully he
up
can
and
find
running. So yeah, his two big combo pieces are shut down here. We've got the Green Suns, which get you your pieces of combo, and then the Natural Order, which just pushes you over the edge sometimes. And so he can't seem to get the card draw, or
He can still
the
physically
Behemoth.
cast both of them.
he can cast those, but he needs to draw them naturally, or get the Glimpse of Nature and start making some things happening.
Yes, and this deck also going heavy on the Glimpse of Nature, running the full 4.
I'm assuming he didn't sideboard in the Abrupt Decays? So that Scavenging Ooze is going to keep those Nimble Mongooses from, or Mongeese from
Ever going.
getting
ever
Threshold.
growing.
Another Heritage Druid.
Do you want a gang block?
It does not seem like a favourable trade. Although, shutting off the Nettle Sentinel could be okay, but there's just so many elves out there, I don't think it's really going to...
It looks like there's only 2 cards in Tom's hand, so that's really limiting his options also, especially if Leroy there can just continually draw extra cards. Oh, he doesn't have a way to bounce the
He doesn't have the
Visionary yet.
Symbiote yet.
And Tom rapidly running out of time.
Well, it doesn't look good for our Rogue Delver hero here.
Really is Rug Delver our hero? Surely it's the Elves player.
No. I hate both those decks. I've played them both a fair bit. They're good decks when you want to win, which is exactly what everyone here is today. But in terms of fun legacy games,
He might be... No, he's just using it for a shuffle effect. He's cast Green Suns to shuffle.
or has he realised that the Grafdigger's Cage was out after he cast the Green Suns?
Possibly.
Oh, it could be to untap the Nettle Sentinel. So how many have we got attacking here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 on the ooze.
Bear in mind that unless he double blocks the Scavenging Ooze is going to be a 4/4 next turn.
That is true. Is that the block you think you would make? 2 on the Scavenging Ooze?
No, I think I'd throw 1 in front of the... Look, you've got to get the turns I got a judge call here. I think we've got to get. You've got to stop his engine, stop him doing anything. The Elvish Visionary, I think, is the one that's most important there. So I'm either taking the full hit, or I'm blocking the Elvish Visionary.
Looks like he wants to shut off the Heritage Druids here.
We do just have a quick judge question here, so we may go back to our dredge game. Oh no, it looks like things have gone on. Tom going down to only 6 life, so Leroy here is presenting lethal on board. Is there anything here he can do? He's not running he is running your traditional 12 creatures of Delve and Nimble and Tarmogoyf, so it's not like he can even...
No,
Cast a
even
young
if he
Pyromancer
blocks the
and make
Scavenging
dudes.
Ooze, it's still 6 points of damage.
Mm-hmm.
Provided that the Nettle Sentinel can be untapped, which he can just bounce the Bayou on the Quirion Ranger to do so. Leroy electing to remove the Nimble Mongoose from the
Gaining
game,
2 life.
gaining 2 life and making a 4/4.
Oh no,
Oh, it was
he's gonna...
6/6. Hitting the Heritage Druids as well.
It looks like Leroy
So-
Martin's going to be making his way to the top 8.
Yeah,
From
unless-
here, he is on the bubble. These players are on the bubble currently. They both have 1 loss. So the loser of this has to have bash next round, and hopefully his breakers will make it. Otherwise, they're out of the tournament. And it looks like the top player, whoever comes out of this, may be able to ID depending on breakers and standings.
Oh, a Spell Snare on a Elvish Visionary, but I don't think it's going to do much, except it should untap the Nettle Sentinel.
It is going to make the Scavenging Ooze a 5/5 or a 7/7.
Which is fairly irrelevant when it's already presenting lethal on its own.
There's your Submerge.
I'm assuming here that Leroy hasn't untapped the Nettle Sentinel when he cast the Visionary.
Yeah, I think this is only 4 damage coming in. Nettle Sentinel obviously not untapping in the untap step, but untaps every time you cast a green spell. Is that a May ability?
I don't know.
The players might have missed that. He obviously was not declared as an attacker.
I'm a bit surprised that even if he did miss the trigger on that. He didn't just use the Bayou to untap
The Nettle
the Nettle
Sentinel
Sentinel
to swing
with the Quirion Ranger.
forked
The
bolt.
Miser's Fork Bolt. I'm pretty sure he doesn't sideboard into more.
No,
Nope, just the one-off. Getting the job done.
That Grafdigger's Cage obviously doing some work.
Here comes our old friend Scavenging Ooze again, with new things to eat. And there's the handshake.
And that's game. The Elves player managing to take down Rug Delver in 2 quick games. I tend to think that's a pretty good game, matchup for Elves. I've played it from mostly the Rug Delver standpoint, and if you don't have the full 6, 7, 8 burn spells in the early turns, it becomes very, very difficult for you to make it through.
It's a much harder matchup, especially when you're not running, as you say, the Chain Lightnings have been cut from this list, and you really want to be hitting. You want to be burning away one spell one elf every turn.
Yeah, hopefully run them out of relevant spells, relevant elves.
Relevant elves, or a bunch of 1/1s on the table aren't really going to do as much. But as soon as you hit 3, and that critical mass starts going, and you glimpse of nature, and elves just start coming out of everywhere.
Exactly. And so we may be going back to the other game. 1-1. Okay, Chris Chant not looking too good. Going down to 4 here.
This looks almost the same as last game. The Elvish Norn on the top, the one-off Cephalid Coliseum play.
Let's see. I don't see any bridges in his yard. He can get an Icarid out, sacrificing the other Icarid.
Which it looks like he's going to elect to do. Or he's going to stifle it.
Hope he's stifling the come into play, not the leave play.
Yeah. Does Icarid remove the black creature as part of the cost, though?
I do believe it does.
So if it has been stifled, that Icarid should probably still be...
No, it's... May need to get a judge over for that one. I'm not entirely sure if the Icarids... when exactly the creature is removed. Okay, Graham King, anyway, wraps it up. It doesn't really matter. Graham King wrapping it up 2-1. And we might be coming back to the booth. Howdy folks, you're watching the Next Level Games Eternal Masters Legacy event, not Vintage. Vintage was yesterday and won by Jacob Dunn on Espresso Stacks. Legacy, we're going to go into the final round. We don't have much longer to go in this round, but we'll take a break. We will be back in about, say, 10-15 minutes. See you then. We've got no sound, Marco. The Red-White Painter is one that we're very, very surprised, personally, that has made it in, just because of the number of Emeralds in the room. The most played deck is Sneak and Show and Omniscience together, making up fully a sixth of the field.
I think the red-white painted deck, though, has a lot more game than the traditional red painted decks because it has the Rest in Peace available to it.
It does have the Rest in Peace available to it, and it's not like their Omniscience decks are running things to get around Painter.
Yeah. Plus, also being able to Enlighten Tutor for those combo pieces is quite strong.
No, it definitely is. It's a very interesting kind of choice to bring Painter. It's more commonly seen in Vintage. It's less commonly seen in Legacy. Though, of course, the deck has been around ever since Shadowmoor.
So it looks like Charles is leading here with a Enlightened Tutor getting Painter's Servant, the first piece of the combo. For those who don't know how the combo works, Painter's Servant, when it comes into play, you choose a color, and all cards become that color, lands, spells being cast, and it combos with Grindstone. Grindstone is a 1-mana artifact from memory, and it costs 3 to activate.
2 to activate.
2 to activate? So 2 and tap. Target player mills 2 cards. If they share a color, they continue to do that. And so because all cards are the same color in the deck now, they just mill through their entire deck.
The power of the Painter deck, for one thing that is absolutely powerful about the Painter deck is its amazing ability to just fight through a field that's very heavily blue. It does have the ability to just play 4 Pyroblast main deck, which is obviously very, very good in a lot of matchups. Clearly, as obviously the Painter can turn things, and we're going to see it right now. He's going to name blue, provided everything resolves, and he's going to be able to Pyroblast the Glistener Elf. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen.
But he has the Pyroblast to counter the Force of Will. Oh, a daze.
Okay, this is a very bad spot for Charles to be. Matthew with his Glistener Elf. He's not going to be able to pump it too high, I doubt.
Yeah, in fact,
actually, Invigorate Berserk right there is game.
Oh, but it's not. We've got another Glistener Elf. I've always found that the Infect deck is one of the decks that doesn't really mind playing Daze that much. You know, all its spells are either free or 1-drops.
Check this out. The Painter deck just won on turn 3 had that Painter resolved.
That's pretty good. So that last card isn't a Painter's Servant, unfortunately. So is the Painter deck running the full 8 Red Blast, or is it running 7? I can see we've got 4 Pyroblast and we've got 3 Red Elemental Blast.
So very, very good against the blue decks all around. 1 card in hand, meaning that any sorcery speed pump is no longer available for Matthew to use. Instant speed is fine because he can attack with a 1/1 and then pump it. But currently, as it stands, he can't use any sorcery speed stuff to get through there. Bear in mind, he is putting a pretty fast clock here on Charles. He's going to be up to 5 poison without the use of any pump spells, and he can attack for 8 next turn. Attack him up to 8 next turn.
However, if Charles gets rid of all the cards in his hand, the Infect deck is not beating past it and Snaring Bridge.
Does he have any bounce spells or anything like that in the main?
From the Infect player?
No, it doesn't look like
he does.
So, with all this mana out, I assume that there's going to be no problem casting anything he has.
It could be that he's stuck with 2 lands in hand.
Probably would have played it last turn.
So another City of Traders, killing the first one, keeping that hand count low.
Okay, so here he attacks for 2, pumps 1. Interesting he chose not to.
Oh no! I don't think Charles realised that he had a Red Elemental Blast. Oh no, Red Elemental Blast is the one that you can't target non-blue spells with. If it had been a Pyroblast, he could have targeted any permanent.
Correct,
on
getting
the
him
field,
down to
getting him
only
down to 0 cards. He
So-
needed Matthew to play a blighted agent there.
So there we go. Matthew taking the first game rather handedly. Just the single force of will knocking Charles away from being able to just win the game on turn 3. Just basically going down the old-fashioned way, fighting dude. There was a pump spell towards the end, but it was mostly irrelevant, really. Charles would have had 1, maybe 2 extra draw steps with the Pendelhaven and just gone.
Yeah, the infect creatures, it's almost like they're double sized because you only have to get 10 poison counters before you're dead,
They all have double strike, whether or not that's printed on the card.
pretty much.
Okay, so
Double strike and you can't gain life.
we're going to swap over here to table 2 to watch Jeffrey Chan versus Chitane. Jeffrey Chan is going to be blinding you with his sneak and show list. There's going to be lovely foils all the way down. Unfortunately, that's not a foil Beta Volcanic Island. Versus Chitane on Punishing Jund. Now, this is an interesting matchup because the Punishing Jund list, besides the discard, doesn't have much it can do in relation to the combo. Obviously, he will have Red Blasts post-board.
Probably also have like a full suite of Duresses and Thoughtseizes, I imagine.
Yeah, so the black discard he has.
So Jeffrey Chan won Eternal Masters on Legacy Masters last year, I believe.
I do believe that is the case, and that does not seem like a fair trade.
Although I think Dark Confidant can draw 7 cards for 7 life when it wants to.
It can draw 7 cards for a lot less life. Yeah, the Punishing Jund list, with it's trying to create a whole lot of small advantages, the recurring burn spell being the titular Punishing Fires, not going to do much against an opponent who's just hoping to combo you out early.
That is true. It's pretty dire straits here. He needs to... Like, he could potentially attack in with the Dark Confidant, maybe double bolt the Gristlebrand, but the Gristlebrand is just going to gain so much card advantage that there surely will be another thing he can show and tell out.
Yeah, drawing 7. He can't draw 14, unfortunately. He has taken enough life to make that not... Well, he can draw 14.
He can and
He
kill
did-
himself, but he
He-
can also block any attack that's being made here and gain a bunch of life and then keep drawing.
Yeah,
And that's the tight spot that the Jund deck's in now. Because it wants to just be putting as much pressure on the show and tell deck as it can.
yeah, it can't attack profitably into a Gristlebrand. It has no way to defend really against the said Gristlebrand.
I'd be very surprised if the Jund deck found its way out of this mess.
Well, the Deathrite Shaman... Yeah, no, I don't see any way this is really going to get out of there.
I think the Jund deck strategy here is to find out as much information as it can about the show and tell deck.
Yeah, which version?
Which version, what type of things you're on.
Yep. Is he running the Omniscience, or is he just straight up blue-red, beat your face in with large dudes?
He doesn't even know if he's running Sneak and Show.
No,
Sorry,
he won't have
Sneak
seen
Attack
it.
at this point.
Yeah, at this
You
point,
can assume it probably based on the Gristlebrands because most of the decks
Omniscience decks choose not to. He does end of turn draw 7. Interesting. I generally, when I've got the Gristlebrand, prefer to make the attack. Though he's not walking into double Fire Blast or anything like that. So drawing 7 there is pretty safe.
He could just be looking for a way to close out the game quickly. He might just be able to drop the Sneak Attack this turn
True.
and swing in with the Emrakul as well.
Yeah, the only thing that Jitesh really has here at all at this point is 4 Liliana of the Veil, which could come down if Jeffrey doesn't find
The Force of Will.
the Force of Will or Spell Pierce. If he doesn't find basically any relevant cards, then sure, the Gristlebrand's going to go and he's going to be 7 life lower than he was. but with the attack,
I find that hard to believe after you've drawn 7 cards, though.
and then looked at the top 3 and a draw step.
He could also draw 7 more, but he does run the risk of just overexposing himself there, with the Tamagotchi being at 3, Confidant swinging for 2, and the Death Right being able to exile an instant or sorcery card. That would be the last 7 points.
So it looks like Jeffrey here is running again, in addition to the usual sneak attack and show and tell, he is also running 3 Omniscience, but it looks to be just to put fatties into play. He hasn't got the Cunning Wishes to go get sideboard options.
Emrakul, Omniscience, and Griselbrand. It's quite greedy.
He's very greedy, going up to all the big spells.
I kind of like to think that Jeffrey's in the process of transitioning to the new Omnitel deck, but he just hasn't quite acquired all the foils yet, so it's just in that in-between state there.
Yes, Jeffrey Chan, famous throughout Melbourne for only playing a card if it's foil or beta. Running only 2 Lotus Petals. Generally these decks try to load up on those, but again, running the Omniscience really is going to start cutting into his slots. I suppose he does run the 2 Simian Spirit Guides there also for a similar effect.
I do like the Simian Spirit Guide in that you can use it at instant speed. So if you've drawn off the Griselbrand and you need that extra red mana to maybe do an instant speed sneak attack, the Simian Spirit Guide will get you there, whereas the Lotus Petal will just sit in your hand until next turn.
Yeah,
So maybe he's just decided to split them down the middle 2 and 2. Plus he can always cast them with Omniscience or just hardcast them and start beating sideways.
Yeah, once you've got Omniscience in play, I don't think you're really looking at playing a 2-2. The only thing with that is it means that he is less likely to be able to rely on his Ancient Tomb to power out a turn 1 show and tell. Quite often you can play your Lotus Petal, Ancient Tomb, just jam it.
Yep.
And say, do you got it? And in this case, he's not going to be able to do that because he can only create red with those Simian Spirit Guides. So while it is better in the late game, if you're just trying to jam it early, he is going to suffer there.
I'm probably overlooking the real reason. It's probably because he just didn't have foils.
Probably.
So I think Jeffrey's deciding what he wants to do on this turn.
I think he's just choosing what to discard here. No.
Oh, I thought he might have been casting the Ponder.
He does have Emrakul in hand. That's a Judge Foil sneak attack there. So he just needs...
And the Simian Spirit Guide, a Force of Will, a Gitaxian Probe, a Mountain, and... I think it's 2 Gitaxian Probes, actually.
Yeah, so... Detain, I don't think really has an out. Even if he lands Liliana here, Griselbrand goes down. He attacks for everything he has. Jeffrey goes to 6. Jeffrey still just jams Sneak Attack Emrakul next turn.
Also, because Jeffrey's gaining 7 life a turn, it's pretty much negating what Jatain's board state is representing. The most he can attack for is 5, so he can just keep
Plus
buying
the
turns.
6/7 to go with the Deathrite Shaman activation.
6/7?
To go to
Oh, yep.
7 life. I think we're going to see a Flying Spaghetti Monster next turn.
You reckon? I'm kind of hoping it's the Griselbrand past the turn and flipping the 1 cost off the Bob.
Can I brainstorm you?
You have to run Portent. It's funny, Brainstorm is a hugely format sculpting card in Legacy, but back when it was initially printed, I was talking to some guys and they always thought Portent was a lot better because you could stack your opponent's deck and you could shuffle. And so without fetch lands, it just wasn't quite as good.
Well, there's a lot of cards that follow that when they were initially printed or spoiled. Not much was thought of them. Another one of that ilk is Merchant Scroll. Merchant Scroll didn't really see much play. It saw High Tide and Was using a couple of control decks, but
Like, what's the worst thing you can search up with a merchant scroll? A counterspell? So here we've got the sneak attack. He's pitching the Simian Spirit Guide, and the Emrakul is coming in and going sideways, and that is the game. Looking at the sideboards, I think maybe the Pyroclasm from Jeffrey Chan.
if he's expecting to fight, he's seen the Bobs there, so it's definitely a very traditional kind of punishing Jund list. The creatures being Deathrite, Dark Confidant, and Tarmogoyf. There's no additional creatures in there, so he's getting a little bit of value there. Possibly a 2-for-1. But what I'm thinking, what more cards does he need to take out? What cards are not good in this matchup? Because we see that the Omniscience deck just has a stronger... Omniscience just has a stronger matchup, really, against a lot of the fairer decks. He just has to avoid the discard. Once he's avoided the discard, it just can crush straight into
So
him.
it is interesting that he has no sort of anti-discard strategy here. Like, I have seen lists, I think it was last year, he might have been running in with Leyline of Sanctities, just to stop things like Duresses and Thought Seizers, stripping away his win conditions.
Okay, here we go. The Inkmoth Nexus does manage to go through into Charles. This is game 2. Matthew is up a game here. But that may be game right here. I think that's a grindstone in the bin. If that welder's survived, the welder takes... He needs to find a second artifact to weld out. Charles is just digging for a second artifact to weld out into a grindstone, and then he's able to combo Matthew.
Matthew needs just one palm spell here.
Charles is on 6 poison here. This will push him to 9 without an additional pump spell. Bear in mind that any Rebs are live. That
Blighted Agent is blue. It looks like he's sitting
That's
on
a Painter Servant in play.
Oh, of course. Is he sitting on a pair of Pyroblasts?
I think he is sitting on a pair of Pyroblasts. So do you wait for the pump spell, or do you go to 9?
I think you can probably.
Oh, he's currently at 9 poison. Okay, we've just been informed from the floor that he's not actually at 6 poison. He's currently at 9. Oh, no, he allowed it to go through. Okay, so the Pyroblasts were not cast.
I think Matthew's out of cards as well.
Needs a draw step, needed an artifact. Did he get it? Sitting with 3 cards in hand, 2 of them being Pyroblast. He would have... I think that's an Ancient Tomb. Meaning he's going to have to... Ancient Tomb a lot better in the Infect matchup.
It's quite good.
Charles looking like he's just running it through the hoops. Look, he can look, Painter's Servant, get the Sensei's Divining Top back, look at another 3 cards, hopefully find a Ensnaring Bridge.
An Ensnaring Bridge. I think his is out here. You can't exactly get 2 Red Elemental Blasts off the...
There's another Reb there, but he's got just too much Infect coming in.
You can block the Glistener Elf with the...
There's 3 dudes there.
You can't block both the Inkmoth and Exile.
Okay, there we go. Matthew Larkham now up 2 games. He's just praying at the moment that his breakers are good enough to make top 8. One of our X2s may get in. Even 2 of them may, depending on how the top tables fought and ID'd. So he's going to be looking on with a lot of interest in how that game's played out. We're probably going to go back to table 2 now. And it looks like Jeffrey and Jutane are shuffling up, ready for game 2. Jeffrey is up a game on the Omniscience deck. Jutane on a very kind of stock standard Punishing Jund. Slaughter Game's probably coming in for the Jund deck.
Slaughter Games is a pretty brutal card.
Yeah, uncounterable, remove... But unlike the Omniscience decks, which
He
will only
has
have the one
so many
Emrakul.
angles to attack from, so even if he hits the show and tells, he still has the sneak attack plan.
Yes, he does have the sneak attack plan, and he can obviously just jam whatever he wants. If he goes for the show and tell, he can just sneak attack. If he goes for the sneak attack, just jam show and tell Omniscience. Win from there.
The Punishing Jund deck is probably bringing in a lot of these cards in this sideboard. He's got the Choke, the Duress, the Pyroblast, the Red Elemental Blast, the Crozen Grip, the Slaughter Games, and the Grafdigger's Cage are all good candidates to come in.
Crows and Grip, I suppose it does have split second, so that would probably be
Well,
fine.
it hits Sneak Attack and it hits Omniscience.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess because he's not going with the Dig Through Time combo, it doesn't really matter what he casts with the Omniscience, he's probably dead.
Okay, that Crows and Grip definitely came in. There's a Thoughtseize, there's a Liliana. So if Jutane chooses to keep this hand, it's definitely based on his ability to disrupt Jeffrey from putting together his 2-card combinations. I'm expecting this will be... Yep. I start my life on 17.
I'm wondering if Jeffrey brought in the Blood Moons.
Well, Blood Moon is a way you can fight these very, very greedy 3 and 4 color decks. So if we look, he only has the 1 Swamp and the 1 Forest, which he is obviously hedging against the Blood Moon. Also considering he does have a Liliana in hand, the black is
Quite relevant here.
quite relevant. He doesn't want to be taken off that in any way. Jeffrey going for the Force of Will.
Wants to protect something. Looks like he's going to pitch the Fire and Ice.
He does have a Lotus Petal, so he may actually have the Lotus Petal double land into Show and Tell play.
Turn 1 Nut Draw.
Imagine if these decks had access to Mental Misstep.
I don't want to.
I do.
I played with Mental Misstep.
I played with it in Goblins.
It's fine staying in Vintage. My friend had just finished building his lands deck when Mental Misstep was printed. He was quite displeased that his mana bonds and explorations were no good anymore.
No, the land decks these days tend to not play those. Oh, the explorations they do, but the mana bonds really gone
Mana
out of.
bond, not so much. It's a pretty big turn 2 go if it's a 3/4. The sorcery, the 2 lands, and the instant from Jeffrey.
Here we go. I'm expecting a Show and Tell. Looks like he's got a Spell Pierce in hand. And 3 unknowns.
No play from Jeffrey here.
Oh, both his turns have just basically been Mana Source go. Not entirely sure why he would have forced in that case, unless he's digging for the second part of a combo and just hoping to draw into it naturally.
It could be the case. He also might expect that, Jutane doesn't have any other discard spells and was hedging on that one.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd be a little worried if I was Jeffrey now,
This could be a
because
Blood
he
Moon.
did tapped out last turn. But
Mhm.
now Jutane has the Bloodstained Mire, which means he could also have the Red Elemental Blast shortly thereafter.
Not if he did choose to get a basic here for his second color, so he may have brought in the Blood Moons. I don't know why he didn't cast it last turn, but...
I think the basic is actually probably just to play around Wasteland. a very confident laying of the card down, assuming that he has no counterspell.
I'm a red deck, you're a blue deck.
That's why Red Elemental Blast is so good, it just catches you completely unaware.
And once again, Jeffrey putting his opponent in a very awkward position where he's not able to attack effectively. And the Liliana that we saw on turn 1 does come down. Unfortunately, that's going to get spell pierced. Well, he does have 2 lands up though. So he can choose to draw 7. By the die, I'm going to assume that Liliana has resolved. We'll just have to get that checked by our floor.
Oh no, the Lotus Petal ticked it up. The artifact is now made the Igor for 4/5.
Okay, so Liliana has not resolved as of yet. Jeffrey just drawing 7. He did get a show and tell, another Lotus Petal. So he can get this Liliana just to go down and just jam another Gristlebrand.
He could also still cast the Spell Pierce here just to make sure that Jatane is tapped out and doesn't have any Red Elemental Blast shenanigans next turn when he tries to get the second Gristlebrand out into play.
He could also. No, he's doing it for the 2 life.
Those incremental gains. Even at 2 life, Gristlebrand is still a 3-turn clock.